Professor Jun said that it will be difficult to stop the outflow of population, and trade firm worker says that there is economic activity in big cities, so it's only natural that people are attracted to big cities where things are going on. I understood the situation of your town after seeing the video. Do you think that you should be stopping people from going or moving to the big cities?
We are trying to do this, but in fact, as a democracy, the people can choose either to live in smaller towns or to go to the big cities. And if you take the situation special in Germany 30 years ago, young people went from the big cities in the suburbs to build houses there because housing in the cities was very expensive. The government in Germany, of course, as every government, I think, in the world, is providing money to the megacities more than to the rural areas or the little centers in the country. And there must be a changement. You need infrastructure, modern infrastructure, that people can move quickly, especially young people with good education. They need also databases in the smaller towns, and they have to have the view that there is a future in their towns.
Mr. Tsuda, already there are so many issues at stake that are intertwined in a very complicated manner, but according to the report drafted by Mr. Masuda, it seems that birth rate is relatively higher in the rural cities. But because people are moving to Tokyo and the urban cities, this has to be halted. Do you agree? Just stopping the flow of residents is difficult. One major issue is education. Unless there are higher education institutions, people won't remain. The high caliber people will have to go to the big cities if there aren't any good universities in their hometown. So they would choose to go to good schools in Tokyo. To that point, that's fine. How do you attract back the young people who've graduated from a university in Tokyo to the hometown? So even if they decide to go back to their hometown after graduation, they may not be able to find a job. So unless jobs are created, you cannot regain the people who had moved once. So what is necessary is U-turn and I-turn, including movers. After outflow, can they come back? That kind of system will have to be created. And how can you attract people who had never had any relationship with that locality? So the comfort of living and the infrastructure, compact city, and also the strength that is unique to that particular locality should be utilized to market its own products through the internet. So by taking those measures, new industry has to be created in order to attract new people to come in too. Dr. Holstein also spoke about the necessity of infrastructure, including the internet. You think that that's necessary? Yes. Mr. Eberstadt of the United States, do you think that population decline can be stopped by stopping people from moving out of rural cities?
The essence of the process of modern economic growth, which has made the world so much richer over the past century, is structural transformation of the economy, which includes significant continuing urbanization, and voluntary movement from rural areas to the cities. This is a huge voluntary movement. And to stop that movement, one is going to have to try to change the preferences and calculations of the people who want to move. Cities are growth poles right now. They're the centers of global economic growth. And until we start thinking about some of the interesting approaches that Mr. Tsuda just mentioned in a little bit more detail, we have to assume there's going to be a continuing flow. And not just in countries where population is declining. It's happening in some rural areas in the United States, even though our population is growing. Rural populations all over the world are shrinking in different countries.
人口減少でないとしても都市への人口の集中っていうのは進んでいってしまうと。
Even if population doesn't decline, we will continue to see migration of people to big cities. Mr. Schuman, what do you think?
Well, I would say that there are many examples of rural communities that actually successfully hold on to people and attract people. We have many counties in the United States and rural America that are actually gaining in population. There's also many counties that are losing population too, so we have winners and losers. I think that the key criteria to look at are, first of all, how many opportunities does a young person have to have fun legally in a community? If there's fun, if there's a lifestyle that they like, they'll stay. The second is, what is the chance of a young person actually creating a successful new business? It's not just finding a job, it's the entrepreneurship of a young person. And if that young person finds support systems in the rural community for creating a new enterprise, then the city is going to gain. Later in life, even when people leave, they may want to come back. As you've already explained, when people come to the city, they find many things about the city that are not to their liking. It's not a great place to raise a family. It's very expensive. There may be higher degrees of crime and stress. So how can a city take someone who is raised locally in a rural area and bring that person back? And I think, again, if you maintain connection with the young people who leave the city and keep showing them ways that you can improve their lifestyle when they return, many will come back.
Opportunities for young people. A town where young people can have fun was mentioned by Mr. Schuman. We would like to now discuss how we can create such a place. So if we can gain people to come back to the rural localities from the urban area was discussed, but if the rural area is gone and disappears from the map, then everything will be meaningless.
According to the strategy to stop the declining birth rate and revitalize local cities, one line of thinking is shown. This is the present situation in Japan in mountainous areas, villages or centers of towns and villages or cities or even prefectural capitals. There's an outflow of population flowing into Tokyo. So we have to stop the flow somewhere. And in the report, it suggests that before the population flows into Tokyo, if a core city can be created in some region, then we could stop the flow of population there, and we can avert the crisis in the regions. And that is the line of thinking shown in the report. Where are such cities that can serve as core cities? A lot of cities are hollowing out, and they are losing their attractiveness. And there's an attempt to try to revive the cities. The key word is making things compact. This is Marugame High Street in the center of Takamatsu City. The district attracted many brand name stores, which are now found standing side by side. The effort to attract was made because they were losing sales to outlets in the suburbs. The figure dropped to 1/3 of what it was during the peak period. The high street started redevelopment 10 years ago. As a result, they have 28,000 visitors on weekends and holidays. I think the place is pretty well known, even outside the prefecture. I believe the atmosphere has become brighter and there's an increase in the flow of people. The place has more to offer than just brand name stores. This is a 200-unit condominium constructed above the commercial building. Our objective was to build a compact town where you have retail stores and housing facilities in close proximity. We used to build towns from the perspective of attracting customers, but there was a major change in approach in that we are now trying to bring back residents instead of focusing on customers. We targeted the senior citizens. So clinics were built on the high street. They provide home visit medical services as well. There are places where people could go to for professional advice on estate planning. Setsuko Akimoto moved into the condominium 2 years ago. She's 82 years old. I used to live in a neighboring town, but I decided to move here because it is so convenient to shop and visit the doctor here. The price of the flat is approximately 20 million yen. She doesn't think it was expensive considering she can live so comfortably alone. I can go to enrichment courses from here, eat out, and recently a hospital as well as a clinic has been built. So it really is convenient. Takamatsu City plans to follow the example of Marugame High Street and promote compact town building where they think, because they think that concentrating residents around train stations would lead to lower nursing and public transportation costs. You have small towns or town centers where there are concentrations of commercial and public facilities. We have decided that we want to reconsolidate these in the region. We will reorient our approach to town building so that even when the population declines somewhat, people will not be inconvenienced and can lead affluent and vibrant lives. So this was the approach taken in Takamatsu City, and they seem to be very successful. Mr. Masuda, compact city building. Can you revitalize the regions and put a stop to the outflow of population? If it's just a matter of stopping the outflow, it's a simple question. But the question is not as simple as that. As I mentioned earlier, you have to provide places of work and you have to provide education. And there are necessary functions that you have to put in place. Otherwise, people will flow out and they wouldn't come back. So it's not so simple as just stopping the outflow of people. You have to create attractive cities and you have to give some thought to that. As the VCR showed, there were senior citizens, and they are sure that they can lead very affluent lives there. They were attracted by that, and so they decided to live there. The issue is not this, that there's a low birth rate in Tokyo and in the regions the birth rate is high. It's not just that problem. You have to make affluent lives for people in different age groups. The solution to the problem, whether you want to do this in Tokyo or whether you want to do this in the regions, small things would lead to solutions, and you should look for these cities. Takamatsu, as the mayor said, is one center and base. It's attractive to young people, and senior citizens can live affluent lives there, and that's why it's attractive. There are administrative aspects, and as Mr. Tsuda has mentioned, if you create such cities, there'll be employment generated. If senior citizens can live affluent lives there, you can develop work for the young people. Dr. Holstein in Germany, compact cities. Do you think this is a necessary approach to take, building compact cities?
The key word in my eyes is innovation and changing process in smaller towns. So you have to build new smaller towns. They may be more compact, yes, of course, but not only for the older generation. We need the links between the generations to have the future. So in my opinion, and this is the way our town is acting, we need a different style of life in the smaller towns, which is even modern and innovate. And I think this might be a way how you can deal with this problem. We need more modernization in the smaller towns.
Yes. Then Mr. Schumann in the United States. Dr. Holstein spoke about small towns and giving thought to small towns and villages. The thinking of the compact city somehow, some say, leads to depopulation of the peripheral areas. What is your take on this?
Well, I think that compact cities have certain virtues around it. But we have to remember that a classic mistake that we make in urban planning is to assume that spatial redesign automatically creates jobs, and that isn't true. We still have to create businesses, whether you have a compact city or a spread city. And I see really great examples of creating new business in rural communities that should inspire us. For example, in Hardwick, Vermont, a farming community of about 1,500 people, this community was losing population, was losing business, but the farmers and local investors came together to create a whole range of new local food businesses and a local food business incubator, really to become the best local food community in New England. And in about 2009, 2010, they created 100 new jobs around local food while most U.S. communities were losing jobs. So it can be done.
Mr. Schumann talked about the private sector businesses and the role of the private sector being very important. On the other hand, Dr. Holstein spoke about small cities need to be built as well. And Mr. Matsuda's report outlines the thinking that cities with potential should be selected and channels, funds channeled there and focus measures there to grow these cities into core cities, to select certain cities. It's a process of selection and focus. Ms. Takigawa, please. We asked our viewers if we should take a focused approach to the regeneration of local regions, targeting investment and measures to the core cities in the region. 61.7% said yes, and 38.3% said no. Most of the one respondent who responded yes said, "It is obvious it would be a waste of taxpayers' money to improve the infrastructure in places with only a few people." Another who responded no said, "A focused approach would marginalize the peripheral areas. We have to find the positive aspects of the regions and restore the nation into one which is blessed with nature, something that we all miss and long for." Dr. Chon in Korea as well, you see a concentration of the population in Seoul to create core cities in the regions, by so doing to prevent concentration of the population in Seoul or putting a stop to the overall population decline. Will that really happen? Well, I believe that whether it's in the regions or if you create core cities in the regions, you can decelerate the population decline. But basically, in the case of Korea, the population in all areas is such that the birth rate is 1.1 everywhere. So in due course, there'll be a decline in population. We'll have to face that situation. But we need to make efforts. Balance the development of national land is something that is necessary. So we shouldn't be stinting in our efforts. 2003, when President Roh Moo-hyun was president in Korea, in the local, there was a move to try to create core cities. And businesses or governments in Seoul or research institutions in Seoul to be moved to the regional areas. That was what was done during his time to revitalize the regions. As a result, the problem which emerged was as follows. Initially, families were separated. Husbands left their family to go to these places, and then the whole family eventually moved. And the family eventually began to live in these cities. In Daejeon, part of the government functions were transferred. And so as much as possible, government functions should be transferred to the regions. In Japan, as well, government functions should be transferred to regional cities to decentralize. That is the preferred approach, I think. And overall, that might delay the decline in population. That would be the positive aspect of this. Mr. Eberstadt, in the United States, selection and focus would induce competition among the regions, and that would strengthen the regions. Do you agree?
Well, I think that as Michael Schumann said, and as some other guests also indicated, unless there is an economic rationality underpinning this sort of an approach, it's going to end up being essentially cosmetic and maybe even political, in the sense that it would, if it is not economically viable, it will have to be end up financed by taxpayer concessions. So economic rationality is a key to making this work.
Mr. Eberstadt talked about economic rationality, otherwise it won't be sustainable. Mr. Tsuda, the process of selection and focus within fiscal constraints, what do you think? The compact city, this is related to the concept of compact cities. Takamatsu was an example, or in Date in Hokkaido, or Toyama. There's a compact city in Toyama. In 2006, they built a track on a former track which was used by trains to build a light rail track, and they've made the city very compact so that senior citizens don't need cars to move around. The most important is transportation. People don't want to ride cars for 30 minutes to go shopping. That's not senior citizen friendly. So everything is better if it's very compact. Kosuke Mitani wrote a book, and he wrote about how strange Japan is. Annually, to improve roads, annually 4 trillion yen is spent, but there's nothing spent on railroads. And so we need to think of railroads as a public good. And the government should create this infrastructure for community building. Such transportation and network should be supported by the government. I think that aspect should be there. Well, different ideas are emerging. We're not running out of time. What do you think, Mr. Masuda? I went to Soja in Okayama Prefecture. The population is 68,000, but the population is increasing in the past 1 or 2 years. I went to Toyama the day before yesterday. So you have to look at the character and the nature of cities.